So, as I say, welcome. My name is Jason Ferreira. I am the director of the Race and Resistance Studies program. And this is Caleb Martinez from the Department of Latino Studies. Welcome to San Francisco State. It's been quite remarkable. Sometimes you try to have an event and flyers, your Facebook pages, tell all your friends to get them to come out, and maybe you get 20, 30 people. With this, it's been an idea, and the idea became a Facebook page, and what was initially going to be a small event has just been such an overwhelming response. We had like 177, we're not supposed to say anything, but the fire marshal says 84 people, but we had like 177 people on Facebook say they're going to come. But I think that the overwhelming response is a reflection of the fact that people are hungry. People are hungry for the ideas contained within the idea of the Black Panther Party and the Zapatistas in conversation with one another. People are hungry for connections across communities, folks like us who live in the belly of the beast, to folks in the global south, in America Latina, and what used to be called the third world, the global south, between black and brown communities, between African and indigenous peoples, across national boundaries, and in the context of the Panthers and the Zapatistas, across historical generations. I mean, in thinking about the Panthers and the Zapatistas, I mean, these are some of the most iconic revolutionary organizations of the past 40 some odd years. So it's not surprising that there would be such a tremendous response to this event. As I say, to something that was just a little over a week ago was an idea. And they're like, I think, Jason, would San Francisco State be interested in this? And we were like, sure. and it's, but you know, San Francisco State, it's appropriate that this event would happen here at San Francisco State. It was, what, 44 years ago, from this building, acting President Hayakawa would be issuing orders from the roof. In the name of the people of the state of California, we call on you to disperse. And just right out here on this grass would be another community organized by the Black Student Union and the Third World Liberation Front, another entity that reflected an idea of people connecting with one another across boundaries, across borders, folks from the Latino community, the Asian American community, the indigenous Native American community, and of course the African American community as well. And that struggle, that 5-year strike, would lead to the establishment of the College of Ethnic Studies, which is one of the sponsors of this here event. In that struggle, and in all of our struggles, in fact, artists would be at the forefront. Artists would be at the forefront of imagining something new. I mean, in the context of the strike here, we had artists from the Black Student Union, obviously Emory Douglas of the Black Panther Party, but also people like Rupert Garcia, Yolanda Lopez, actors, future actors by the name of Danny Glover, Asian American activists who would go on to form groups like the Kearney Street Workshop. Artists were in the vanguard of, as I say, putting forward images of ourselves that made us think differently about ourselves, made us think differently about one another, and made us even think differently about the institutions that affect our lives. I'm thinking in particular here of, and I don't know, maybe Emory will talk about it, but the way in which the pig was used as an image to get us to think differently and to turn the script. You know, I was listening to Democracy Now! This morning, and Harry Belafonte was awarded a Lifetime Achievement, and in his comments he talked about Paul Robeson, who said that artists are the gatekeepers of truth. They are civilization's anchor. They are a compass for humanity's conscience. And I think that those words are appropriate for the individuals that we have here today and the movements that they're a part of. And so with that, I want to introduce my colleague, Caleb Martinez, who will talk more specifically about the artists with us today.
So thank you, Jason, for reminding us of the artists that were so instrumental in this struggle for the College of Ethnic Studies. I want to just say one more time that this event is being co-sponsored by SF State's Departments of Latino Studies, Race and Resistance Studies, American Indian Studies, and the Center for Political Education. And you'll see video recording here to my right, your left. And I just want to let folks know that the video recording is for archival and public dissemination purposes, and will be available. Video from this event will be available at the Center for Political Education's website. So if you haven't done so yet, take a look at the sign-in sheet. That there will be a clipboard coming around. You can sign up to receive information about other events that the CPE sponsors and organizes, and you can find this full video. If you know anyone who wasn't able to make it today, they can get access to the video at their website. Also, just want to let folks know that a week from Tuesday, a week from tomorrow in this room, there will be an event here from the Izon Arizona group. They'll meeting here 5:30 to 7 p.m. to report back on their most recent delegation to Arizona and their work with two Arizona organizations, No More Deaths, and also Guerra y Libertad, whose mission is to end death and suffering on the U.S.-Mexico border. We'll also, CPE is hosting an event this Thursday titled Migration Now, and it's in some ways very much related to the theme of today, which is artwork and struggle. And there will be a series of prints related to migration on display at the Center for Political Education at 518 Valencia. The opening reception is Thursday at 6 p.m. and the closing reception is a week from this Thursday at 6 p.m. And now to say a few words about the artists that are with us today, I want to start by introducing Caleb Duarte. So Caleb Duarte migrated with his family from the northern states of Mexico into the farming communities of California. He began to paint at an early age and began his studies at Fresno City College and continued at the San Francisco Art Institute and at the Graduate Sculpture Department of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. His work has been reviewed by the LA Times, Art Limited Magazine, the San Francisco Chronicle, Spark Public Television, and others. He's exhibited his work at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, Red Dot Art Fair in New York, the Sullivan Galleries in Chicago, Jack Baker Gallery here in San Francisco, Gallery 727 LA, and has created works at the World Social Forum in Mumbai, India, Santiago de Cuba, in Honduras, in Mexico City, and throughout the United States. Duarte is co-founder of an experimental artist residency and event space in Chiapas, Mexico called De Edelo, which is an acronym EDELO that stands for En Donde Era la ONU, which is where the UN used to be. And he'll speak more on that space, but basically the building was the former headquarters of the UN in Chiapas, which was occupied by Zapatistas and converted into an arts and culture space. And with us today is also Emory Douglas, who participated with the Edelo, and some of the artwork that we're seeing here today was created through his collaboration with Zapatista artists there. Emory Douglas was born May 24th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has been a resident of the San Francisco Bay Area since 1951. Douglas attended City College of San Francisco, where he majored in commercial art. He was involved as revolutionary artist and then Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party from 1967 until the early 1980s. Douglas's art and design concepts were always seen on the front and back pages of the Black Panther newspaper, reflecting the politics of the Black Panther Party and the concerns of the community. Douglas's work has been displayed as part of many retrospectives looking at artwork created in the Black Panther Party. For example, his work has been displayed at the 2008 Biennial of Sydney in Sydney, Australia, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, California, the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, the Richmond Arts Center, and also in galleries in Houston, Manchester, England, and New York, among many other venues. His work has appeared in the 2008 June-July volume of Art in America print magazine. The book Black Panther, The Revolutionary Art of Emory Douglas provides a comprehensive collection of Douglas's artwork. And as I mentioned earlier, in December 2012, Douglas was invited and went to the Edelo art space in San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas, to participate in an artist residency and create an exhibit titled The Encounter, Black Panthers, Zapatistas. So I welcome you all to Zapantera Negra, Black Panthers and Zapatistas, and please join me in welcoming.
Well, for me, it was a very enlightening and inspiring experience. I had, of course, you can't learn everything in 2 weeks. I was there 2 weeks the first time and 10 days the second time with my daughter. The first time I had the opportunity to be there for the opening of the exhibit, the Encounter, Panthers and the Zapatista exhibit, which was an amazing exhibit. I was able to connect with a lot of people from different parts of South America, even from Chile to Mexico to Venezuela, folks who came through the exhibit and some who were aware of the art and the history of the Black Panther Party. Also able to go into some of the liberated territories, which I would like to say. Very inspirational and very dynamic. Of course, you're dealing with people who are creating a new world, and they're doing it with whatever limited means that they have. You see that determination, you see that spirit and compassion in the individuals themselves. I recall us going to 17 of us, which we have some of the slides here. Mm-hmm. Well, we went to this particular place called the school. It's the school December 17th. I believe it's the date of when the Zapatista started. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's called December 17th. And Caleb had set it up for us to go there. Not there. We went to the Calico to get permission to go there, and it had to be set up in advance. From what I understand, he went there many months before we came. Then he had to give them the list of who was coming. Then once we got there, we had to go back with the list and wait before they would okay us to go. And once we went, and we thought we were going to be painted at the Catacomb, but they sent us down the road to an institution, the school, to do the painting. This young man is one of the young men who was in the art exhibit, but he's also one of the teachers at the school where we went to do the painting. Now, where we went to do the painting was the school, but it was a big, long, like a big, long barn, to give you an idea. This is the, I believe, the outside of it. This is what it looks like, but since this is not the exact building, but this is what it looked like. Here, again, we're at the, where is it?
Oventique.
Oventique. Okay. This is one of the protocols, and we were being received there. On New Year's night, we, myself, and others who participated in a lecture, discussion of analysis and reflections conference that took place there, was invited to come and have a party with the Zapatistas on New Year's night. Never have happened before. So you can imagine with thousands of Zapatistas at this location, we're dancing with Zapatistas who have on their whole identity, along with women, children, just dancing until the early morning. Really cold, but enjoying it. These are some of the where we went, and this is one of the brothers who I met when I was there at, where is this?
El Ambobaco.
El Ambobaco.
Cine Cantar.
Yes, it's a small town. They told me that we're going to a place which is 45 minutes outside of Chiapas. I mean, outside of San Cristobal. And they have a clinic, so a pharmacy. So I'm anticipating I'm going to see because I'm from here, I'm thinking I'm going to see the kind of pharmacy that you see here. But when you go to the pharmacy, you see a building like the one you see here. And when you go in, what they had is the indigenous herbs that they had learned the medicinal properties from their ancestors and their elders, and they had them bagged up, and they had the different properties of what they were used for, so that when people had illnesses of different sort, they could come to them if they had some kind of problem, health problem, and get these particular herbs. So this was the pharmacy. The pharmacy was rocks on the dirt floor, hard rocks on the dirt floor, and the building made out of the wood that you see in these images here. So it was very, and I mean, these are very proud. People are very proud, very determined to create a new world based on dealing with what you have to get what you need. This is where we worked when we went to the December 17th to the location. This is what it looked like. When we were there, we stayed there for 2.5 days. We slept up on that level there in sleeping bags, and we had to go to the outhouses. There's no toilets. You got no toilets. You ain't got no flushing toilets. You have to go down the hill, and you have to go into the shack, and you go into the hole, and you hope you don't fall in at nighttime. But I was experiencing as a young man here living in California, in Fresno, because Fresno used to be like that. There used to be cotton fields across the street of the houses where my auntie and them used to live at in Fresno and all those small country states, towns you see around here. They used to be the same way. So I had experienced that experience as a young person. But it was an amazing experience to be there with Caleb, Rigo, and 17 other artists, where we were able to collaborate to put together some images. But mainly the young people were doing the images, where we were there to hopefully to inspire them or to contribute with their, hoping they would get involved. And as you see, they did. Many of them, what they did is they got paper, were given paper to draw their ideas out, and then after they warmed up to us, they started coming in and wanting to do the work themselves. We didn't have to ask them. We didn't have to coach them in. They just came in and started participating in the artwork itself. And 99% of the images that you see here are the images that the young people there did themselves. One thing I observed while there, the young men, they out in the middle of, we on the edge of the jungle right now. And I mean, we just that close to the jungle. And what happened is that you see these young men with these designer jeans on and these stylish haircuts. Then you see the young ladies with these, all their traditional dress on, coming through. And it's amazing. Here they're out in the middle of nowhere. And they're styling and dressing, but to enjoy each other. And they're there to go to school, I think for about, for 6 months or something like that. And then they go back to work, help their families on the land, and then they come back again. But it was a beautiful experience. That November, again, that's the November 17th is the words of the original date of the Zapatistas starting. And so what we did is, because we didn't have much time, and we had to bring the paint. You have to understand, they couldn't afford to give you paint. They can't afford to give you brushes. They couldn't afford to give us sleeping, all they could give us a place to sleep on. They couldn't give us sleeping bags. Caleb had to organize that with the Dello to bring all that with us. Sleeping bags, paint brushes. Then we had to go back into the town when we ran out to get more paint, about 45 minutes away. So you have to understand, when you go in here, you're going here to make a contribution to the inspiration and to inspiring and to make that connection with the community there. You're not going there in relationship to thinking that you got all these things that you put disposal that you can deal with. You have to bring all that with you. We went down the hill. We ate just like they ate. We ate beans and rice. We ate in the same places they ate at, in the little cafeteria where they had what you call a cafeteria. This is the brother who from Mexico City who did the original poster that was for the announcement of the event. This is outside of the building where we slept and worked in. He stayed a couple of days after we left, and all the young people there stayed up all night, came and stayed all night helping him map out and paint the images that you see there. I mean, they have to run. They don't have no certain time that they have to come in and the bell rings and they got to go to bed and get up. They can just stay out and hang out, and that's what they did. Even inside of the inside of there, you had 3 young men who had this book of Che Guevara and his image. And they were way in the back of the corner, and I could hear them plotting, trying to figure out how they were going to put this image on the wall. And when we went to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning, they were still in the back with almost little light. And they were just trying to determine how they were going to do this. The next morning we got up, the image was almost finished. Here again was when I did a presentation at the, while I was in Idelo. Also, this is the I am we. This was a word that we, a quote that we should use called I am we. And they thought that this was relevant to link the Zapatistas and the Black Panther Party movement.
So part of the idea was to invite different local and international artists, not just Zapatistas, but artists that would kind of take the challenge to try to interpret these two movements. And so the show's about 14 artists, from video installation to posters to performance. This is a kind of like a traditional ceremony going on by an artist from San Juan Chamula. He's been painting for a very long time. He's also a cultural activist. And so we invited him to be part of the show, and this is him and his family kind of inaugurating the opening of the exhibition. And here she's passing on little shots of poch, which is the drink that they make. And it's traditional to pass it around during any celebration. And this painting that you see in the back was made by Jose Luis, a Zapatista painter. He's about 20 now, right? 18?
18, probably.
So yeah, he was born during the revolution. So he was still in the valley when they went to war in 1994. And so to see him coming to Idelo and participating alongside with Emory represent two different struggles, two different generations, two different times, connecting those and trying to see where that goes was a real powerful experience, I think. A lot of what the Zapatistas say is, how do we keep the memory alive? How do we keep story alive? Meaning that how do we keep embodying it in our bodies, our history? How does it still become part of who we are? And this was a kind of one of those attempts to keep exercising what the Black Panthers represented and what Zapatistas are representing now. So the idea was to really look through Emory Douglas's work and through the performances or protests or demonstrations that the Black Panthers were doing, and look at what the Zapatista women are doing. The use of the mask, the use of the leather jackets at one moment, you know. And so how do we use these different forms of communicating, whether the use of the body, painting, poetry, music, how do we use these tools to really challenge society to start stepping outside what seems to be an established system or unshakable system? And so then we started looking at the different visual forms that the Zapatistas are using now, how that came about, and how the Black Panthers, with the work of Emory Douglas, what that was trying to say to society. And so here we start seeing the different uses of line and mark and color. And the Zapatistas, the use of their image is very playful, very colorful, and it's embroidery work. They use yarn, they use a lot of fabrics. And so we started thinking about how to introduce Emory's work to the Zapatista communities and how there could be some kind of visual intervention between both movements. So here's an example of how the gun is torn into corn. So it's a very strong spiritual symbol for the communities in Chiapas. And so we invited different women's Zapatista embroidery collectives, to take some of Emory's images and create embroideries that you can see here when you get some time, to translate Emory's work into their own aesthetic, into their own language. And so when you go into Zapatista territory, I mean, murals are just seen plastered everywhere. So it's a big part of their form of understanding reality or expressing themselves or really creating a presence that we're here, we're not going anywhere. So that the paintings kind of remind themselves as well of what the struggle's about. Just like Emory's work that reminded us that the inherent power that we have as a community. But there is a huge contrast between the two. You see that shot and then that one. And then the symbols are a large contrast too. The Zapatista symbol is a snail. And I think Rigo can speak a little bit more about that. And then the Black Panthers, and you can speak about where that came from. And so then we made our journey into Zapatista territory to kind of see where the greater connections were, and it was an investigation. It was an idea, and so it's still a growing idea. We don't know where it's going, but it's been so far a beautiful experience.
So I want to apologize for arriving late, and I'm also going to have to leave early. I have a hard time juggling all these things, but yeah, this was incredible exhibition there that some students came from where they come?
Tuxtla,
From
art
Tuxtla,
school.
yeah, from the art school close to San Cristobal. I mean, I think that we live in a period that, as most or greatly been described as the era of globalization, you know, and just like many other words, like the word door, you know, when you hear the word door, we visualize something that what the door looks like. There's like thousands of versions of what can be a door. Just like, so when we hear the word globalization, we tend to think of like one thing that's kind of very oppressive and this corporate-led process, but in reality there's many globalizations going on. There's many processes through which people are coming together, and that's where we thought the Zapatistas and the Black Panthers had so much in common. I had the good fortune to be in South Africa with Robert King, who was a rank-and-file member of the Black Panther Party. He spent 31 years in prison, 29 and a half in solitary confinement. I was accompanying him to a visit to South Africa, and Halima Motlanthe, who at one point became president of South Africa afterwards. He was then the ANC Secretary General, and he thanked Robert. He said, you know, on behalf of my comrades, I want to thank you for the books that you guys wrote. He said that's what kept us going in Robben Island. And he started naming all these Soledad Brother and all these Panther books. So here you have someone as far as South Africa, presidents of nations thanking the Black Panthers for what they wrote decades before. And then if you see the documentary Cocalero about Evo Morales' run for the presidency in Bolivia, you see the screensaver on his laptop was Subcomandante Marcos. So you have this like highly localized movement. Some that came out of Oakland, California, out of Chiapas, Mexico, but for some reason captured the imagination of people worldwide. And I think a big part of that reason was the size of the injustice that they were up against, you know, institutionalized racism here and in Mexico. But for some reason, their message really reverberated and echoed. And so as artists and creators, we're like, okay, what was it, aside from the righteousness of their message, what was it in the way that they delivered their message that was so inspiring and captivating? And, you know, luckily we still have Emory here, so we had a direct link between these two movements, and it was, I don't know, I don't really have words to put it, but it was so obvious, the feeling, the things that were going on with Emory and these teenagers working together. And just seeing the interest, the number of people that are here, it's like, it's apparent that there is a really powerful communication that both the Black Panthers and the Zapatista movement still command. And I don't know, I think both Caleb and I were attracted to the thing there in Chiapas through those small paintings and embroideries that you have here. And they've gone so much in one direction where they've claimed flowers, you know. Just as the Panthers used weapons which were Constitution protected right, that they were just exercising this, they were just exercising their citizenship by carrying a gun. You have these people that grow flowers to sell to tourists and whatnot, and embroider flowers in their clothes, but they've now gone in such a direction that they embroider a flower like somebody else might throw a hand grenade, you know. And it's working, you know. So
one of the artists that leads the women's collective, she's about 32, so during the uprising she was about 16. And they didn't have schools right after the revolution occurred, and so it's been a long, slow process, and right now they have several high schools throughout the state. But one thing that we were talking about with her was that she doesn't know how to write or read Celtal, which is one of the many Mayan languages that still flourish in the state of Chiapas. So you have this huge population of indigenous children that just weren't being taught how to read and write their own language, because the teachers would come from the cities and do their year or 2 years of their community service or whatever, and there was no real connection to the indigenous communities. And back then, you know, indigenous people couldn't walk on the sidewalks. They had to walk on the street. Before 1994, they would make very little money with the ranchers, and they would have to buy their own groceries within the same ranchers. So it was really a whole different system of dependency with the Mexican ranchers. So after 1994, she's got like 4 little sisters. They know how to speak, write, Celtal, and they're just thriving in their own culture. A lot of different educators come from different cities to teach younger teachers different skills for education, so they are open to outside influence and outside support. So that's what we see now. As far as universities, there's still no universities available. There's one that's called the University of the Dirt, San Cristobal de las Casas, but that's mostly carpentry, electricity, different skills that they can go back and teach within their rural communities. So sometimes we've invited Zapatista artists to come with us and go to Cuba, come to San Francisco, and let's present this work. They're not able just yet to go out and represent the Zapatista movement. So that's still a very slow process. One of the painters was invited to go study in Cuba for free to be a doctor, and the community decided that it wasn't the time for him to do that yet. And so this is a decision that the whole community makes together. It's a strategy. They know that time is slow. They know they got 500 years ahead of them because they've been 500 years under the gun. So for them, it's not about individual success or progress within a whole individual mindset. It's more about how we, as a community, as a people, are going to move forward and think about the next 500 years. So they're really ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, I just want to mention too that we did have alternative schools in the Black Panther Party. We had set up our own schools so that we had people who had, even from here, who were administrators who helped come and assist us and mentor us in how to set that school up. But we had, from our perspective, and not so because we want to teach children not what to think, but how to think, so they can analyze for themselves.
Any other questions? Anybody else got a question?
I wanted to say thanks for bringing this update to SF State. Thank you for the presentation as well. My question was around some of, I guess, pertaining around the graphics and the visual elements. You mentioned, or you showed earlier the Caracol and the Panther, and I was hoping that maybe you could elaborate more about like any parallels that you saw, or like what sort of connections that you saw between like those two images, which carry a lot of like historical visual weight.
Well, more is about self-determination and defining who you are from your perspective of who you are, and in your images, and putting the images of it's about self-determination more so than anything else. I think that's the link between the Zapatistas and the Black Panther Party, as the Black Panther Party 1966 to 1980, self-determination, alternative, setting up your own institutions, your own way of doing things, trying to create a new way of doing things, and trying to enlighten people about those things that you're doing, organize all those things. Yes, that's the dynamics that I see in the art, the art itself.
You want to talk about why the symbol of the panther?
Oh yes, he asked me to talk about why the symbol of the panther. Well, a lot of people don't realize that the symbol of the panther came from the South, from Lowndes County, during 1960s, before the Black Panther Party, about 65, what have you. What you had is in Lowndes County, Alabama, you had the racists who ran the Democratic machinery. And you had a lot of illiterate whites who couldn't read or write, who were racist, but couldn't read or write. Therefore, they couldn't go to the ballot to cast their ballot or to vote. So what they got was a icon that they were allowed to have, so that when the racists went to vote, they would know who to vote for, and that was a rooster. So that opened up for blacks to do the same thing. And they sing these high school mascots like sports teams, and they chose the panther as the symbol. And there's a picture that unfortunately don't have here. I may have it in my book. I think I brought the book with me. That shows them up on the nose saying vote Black Panther, and you have this symbol of the panther. And you have this young man standing on the nose with a gun. And this was pre-Black Panther Party, Oakland, California, for self-defense. So this goes to the heart of defending oneself in the community. Because before the Black Panther Party, you had the deacons for self-defense, which were blacks in the South who protected the communities, who were deacons who protected the community against the raids against the Klan. So you had this whole thing of self-defense that went on before the Black Panther Party. You had Robert Williams and Mabel Williams, who were two members of the NAACP who lived in Monroe, North Carolina. They got in clash with the Klan. Robert Williams, who was the head of the NAACP, because he believed in self-defense, he was expelled from the NAACP during that period. He had to leave the country, him and his wife, because of the Klan was after him. I know they went to Cuba, then they went to China, and during the 60s, you used to see Robert Williams on the front of the Peking Review sitting with Mao Zedong. And so that's how the blacks in the United States, activists in particular, began to all identify with China in their struggle, because they're showing their solidarity with the activists who had to leave the country and go to their country. And so that was and then we used to sell a book called Negroes with Guns, which was a book about Robert Williams and his struggles. He eventually came back to the United States through Tanzania, then to Detroit, where Detroit then was pretty progressive, and they refused to extradite him back to Carolina. So he stayed there until all the charges was eventually dismissed.
Yeah, if I could say a couple of words about the snail. So I overheard somebody there talking about the caracol. Of course, the caracol moves very slowly. And we all live in the age of speed as power, as Paul Virilio sort of thought of speed as an expression of power. But when the Zapatistas approach the symbol to represent themselves, they said before you bust a move, before you start going on your journey, you should think of a place for yourself where you feel safe. You should first build a place of safety for yourself before you head out on your journey. And this place that you've built for yourself as a safe place should be not something petty or mishkino, but should be something vast and a large framework within which you feel safe. So they use the shell as a metaphor for that. So the snail builds a shell where he or she can retract back into and feel safe. And in the shell, there's the shape of the galaxy, of the spiral of life, you know. So it's not just any house. So from this place of safety, they then think of where to go, and once they decide where to go, they proceed in that direction very slowly. That's why.
Okay, I'll ask a question. So can you say a little bit about the newsletter that is coming out of this collaboration, and why you chose a print newsletter? And Emory, maybe your contributions working on the Black Panther Party newsletter, and any kind of similarities between the two, but why a print newsletter, and why that instead of like online format?
Well, you know, the idea was to really get, you know, activists, artists, educators, folks that are out there, illustrators, to give us, you know, a beautiful reflection of how art has really encouraged them to keep on this kind of almost, that seems an impossible struggle. And inviting Emory Douglas and his experience editing the Black Panther newspaper, and thinking about the aesthetics of what the newspaper was able to achieve in the Black Panther movement. It was really inspiring to connect both aesthetics of Zapatismo with the Black Panther, a way of communicating. So part of the newsletter was like these big Emory Douglas prints that kind of portrayed the black figure in a completely different way, kind of created a shockwave within the white established America, like, is this really happening? And at the same time, you could hang the paper in your room and really have a mirror reflection of who the South is that you couldn't find nowhere else in mainstream media, or even within your own recollection of the South. And so that, to me, and to a lot of people, was a very important tactic to really change the way we view ourselves when our educational system is teaching us a whole other part that is not of ourselves. And so that was one of the reasons we wanted to keep that idea alive, where you can just take the image and put it on your wall and be with it, instead of surfing through it online and just feeding our minds with more and more information that we'll forget within seconds. And this actual piece will have a physical presence, you know, and shifting our perception of the South. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the newsletter and its effect and your role in it back in the day.
Well, my responsibility on the paper, which was a newsletter initially, it was done on a legal-size sheet of paper, the first issue, and it was typed on a typewriter. And Bobby Seale did the masthead with the marker and pen. Thanks, man. And so that became the Black Panther Party community newspaper. The second issue of the paper is when I started working. That was the issue after we had came back from Sacramento, California, to observe the legislation of the changing the gun laws, because blacks now knew the gun laws and what have you, and so they wanted to change them. So I began to do cutting and pasting. We had very little money, so we couldn't afford all the graphic arts materials that you had then. So we used whatever we had. We used the typewriter ball. Sometimes we had friends in the first 3 or 4 issues of the paper who could do the stats for the galleys, for the layout of the articles. We use rub-off type and stuff. Maybe that's a foreign language to a lot of people, because it don't exist no more. And so we use those type of things for the for making the headlines for the newspaper. We would work in a living room in a studio apartment. We work on tables, any kind of table that was flat that we could work on. We had to mark out and map out our own layout sheets with pencils and stuff like that. And we used to use rubber cement glue and stuff to glue them down. And it was like a portable operation that we could pick it up and we could take it to the next house when we had to move out of that house to the next house, until we finally established our foundation for for putting out our paper on a consistent basis at our first headquarters. And my responsibility was, it's like then we had called Each One Teach One. Whereas whatever I knew and learned from my graphic skills at City College that I applied in relationship to the newspaper, those were the things that I had to tell those who came to work with me or who volunteered to come and work on the newspaper, those skills that I had. Because in the early days in 1967, I was supposed to go to Cuba. But because Bobby Seale lobbied against me going to Cuba because they had nobody else to work to put the paper together. So I didn't get to go to Cuba. Somebody else went. So Each One Teach One was a great experience to learn and to share. Because then after many years, I was able to travel because the comrades in the cadre, everyone could do what everyone else could do in that cadre. And then you had those who had art skills who came in. And it was my responsibility because they may have, even a lot of them had much greater skills as artists than I did. But they didn't understand how to integrate the politics into the art. So that was my responsibility, to show them how to apply the politics into the artwork itself from the perspective that we were talking about. And then we had people come in, work with banners, flyers, all the information that came out that dealt with our organization, and we had a community printing operation where we call it Emory's Community Printing and Graphics, where we did community for cut rate, because we knew that they couldn't afford to go to those commercial printers to get things printed. So we did it a little above cost, and it wasn't necessarily about their politics, it was more about a service, because if they appreciate the service, they appreciate the Black Panther Party. What I learned from the Zapatistas was patience. I mean, it's obvious that you learn patience because what you see and how this is a peasant struggle, but it's a patient struggle. And when I seen the snail and I understood what the snail, at least had some insight of what the snail represented in patience, then I could see that in the context of how they went about doing what they doing and how they're trying to achieve this new community and this new world vision that they have. Very patient, very patient. I think we can learn patience because everything we do here have to be instant gratification. But there it's about patience. I mean, when we went to, give an example, when we went to the pharmacy that I mentioned, they said, well, we can package up the herbs right now, but we have to wait till we get some more money so we can buy some more bottles, and then we'll make some salves. And then we will make salves from the herbs. So that shows a patience that they don't have but very little to deal with, very little money. So they'll be patient to do with what they have until they can get the money so that they can go ahead and buy the bottles so they can make the salves. So that little small thing there shows patience.